So I think that we could all agree here that Amandla Stenberg is by far one of the most insufferable hires over at Lucasfilm that was specifically chosen, by the way, by leslye Headland. I don't know if you guys knew this, but they literally created the role of Osha and May specifically for Amandla Stenberg. There were no auditions, there were no any kind of audition phase over at Lucasfilm for the Acolyte. It was all catered to Amandla Stenberg specifically, and this is why exactly everything is beginning to backfire when it comes to the Walt Disney Company, when it comes to how their ways of hiring people go, especially over at Lucasfilm. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You could also follow me at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. So, one thing about Bob Iger and the Disney heads is that we all know that they are currently in a phase of panic right now. They don't know what to do with Lucasfilm and, most importantly, Marvel Studios. They're really trying to figure things out with Captain America 4. We'll talk more about that later. But focusing on the Acolyte Season 2 and everything else going on with the whole cancellation situation and how Amandla Stenberg has been reacting behind the scenes, this is where things begin to get out of control for those like Kathleen Kennedy and leslye Headland. Let's discuss. Now, one thing about this is that we know that Bob Iger is one that likes to lie. Alright, this is the one CEO that will lie his way through year by year just to please the shareholders, just to please the customer base into the following year. This is why you have a lot of Star Wars titles that end up getting canceled, because they get announced specifically just to satisfy shareholders into believing that there is a future for that brand. Now, focusing on everything else here, alright? Now, with Lucasfilm now considered one of the most failed divisions at the Walt Disney Company, especially after the Acolyte ratings disaster, one major development now has more to do with actress Amandla Stenberg and her recent battle with the Disney heads after they made many moves against Lucasfilm after their emergency meeting about the current state of Star Wars. Now, one crucial update, however, now involves how actress Amandla Stenberg recently got involved in many heated arguments with the Disney higher-ups after they decided to cancel the Acolyte Season 2. Something that both leslye Headland and Kathleen Kennedy, by the way, are now desperately trying to reverse and renegotiate with Disney that they can do better. Stenberg, however, reportedly is in a phase of panic right now, since she already lost multiple Acolyte spin-off shows after those were cancelled and she was removed from them initially. This included a prequel miniseries and one that would take place after the Acolyte, but not considered a Season 2 per se. She was also set to have many roles as cameos in upcoming High Republic-era Star Wars shows as well. Now, with the Acolyte cancellation recently finalized by Bob Iger and the Disney heads, since even they view the backlash as too large to handle with a Season 2, Amandla is reportedly joining the battle with Kathleen Kennedy and leslye Headland to desperately convince Bob Iger to reinstate the Acolyte Season 2 to the Star Wars roadmap roster for the rest of the 2020s. Even Lucasfilm Story Group members are joining the battle with KK, leslye Headland, and Amandla in a last-ditch effort to get Bob Iger to reverse his recent decision, which may have been his only good decision that has happened in recent years. Now, in addition to this, Amandla Stenberg already has been warning Disney of taking some form of legal action, since she claims that Disney agreed to a multi-season deal for the Acolyte. The Disney heads reportedly claimed that this was untrue and incomplete and was not promised under Stenberg's contract at all with Lucasfilm. In fact, leslye's script was specifically requested by Disney, of course, to Disney to leave the show open-ended in case something went wrong with the show. In this case, which it did. Now, with Stenberg, now in a very panicky phase since the majority of her roles in her acting career were going to be catered to Star Wars and under Disney's wing, even offers that she was given for the Marvel Universe have now been put to the wayside, since leslye Headland was removed as a director and co-writer from many Marvel spin-off shows, some of which were going to be connected to Ironheart in 2026, that were going to feature Stenberg for spin-off stories that are now officially no longer moving forward. Now, guys, let me just say one thing before I move on about this. Now, this just goes to show you that Stenberg is another self-absorbed individual that will go the extra mile to get what she wants no matter what. very similar to what we have seen with Brie Larson and Tatiana Maslany, which, by the way, there's been a whole deal going on right now with Maslany trying to get her role as She-Hulk in the Young Avengers film. We'll talk more about that, of what's going on with Avengers 5. But what's interesting about this, moving onwards, is that Stenberg really has this whole idea, like she's so beloved by the majority of Star Wars fans, and this is something that she has gone off about many times, leslye Headland and Kathleen Kennedy, that the backlash coming from the fans is nothing more than a minority, that it's not a majority of fans. Well, let me just say one thing here. If it wasn't a majority of fans, well, why are the toys and the merchandise catered to the Acolyte not selling well at all on a record level high? Alright, we all know that many people are backing out of either their pre-orders for the Acolyte or are showing no interest in the Stranger's helmet, which is not even coming out until 2025 sometime. There's a lot of things when it comes down to the Acolyte merchandise that is already backfiring for Disney and Lucasfilm, and that is living proof that it is more than a minority of fans that want nothing to do with the Acolyte whatsoever. But let's move on, shall we? Now, specifically, Stenberg is reportedly making the necessary legal moves if Disney doesn't end up changing their decision by this September, which is when they have the time to renegotiate with Kathleen Kennedy and leslye Headland. Past that time, all bets are off for the Acolyte Season 2, and so far it's not looking good for her sake and for the rest who created the series, like leslye Headland herself. Now, we talked about how multiple High Republic era projects were already axed over at Lucasfilm, including a High Republic trilogy that was catered to Disney Plus that ended up not working at all, that was going under a code name called Star Wars Eclipse Chapters 1 through 3, loosely based off of the doomed Eclipse video game for Star Wars that may or may not come out. We'll have to wait and see for 2026. But what's interesting about this has a lot to do with the fact that Stenberg and her music video ultimately is what really caused Disney to axe her from so many projects first off, and then cancel those said projects because they knew they couldn't do a recast properly, because the character of Osha and May, as per leslye Headland, it was specifically catered to her. There were no auditions for this actual series for the characters of Osha and May, and so it kind of sabotaged everything in the process. So what's interesting about this has a lot to do with how Amandla Stenberg has been reacting. This is very near similar to Brie Larson and Tatiana Maslany's scenario, where they know their only future is catered to one brand. Alright? So with Brie Larson it was for Marvel, with Tatiana it was for Marvel. They're desperately trying to get more roles in there and renegotiating with Disney, and so far it's been very murky. We'll talk more about what's going on with Tatiana, but with leslye Headland and Kathleen Kennedy grouping up now with Amandla Stenberg to fight Disney, to battle them, to reinstate an already cancelled Season 2 of The Acolyte. This is exactly, by the way, why Leslye gave that very vague answer just a couple of days ago about why Season 2, may or may not even happen. They don't really know what's going on with that, when in reality, all this drama is going on behind the scenes over at Lucasfilm, and it is not looking good for them at all. So overall, guys, drop a comment below, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.